Welcome back to Introduction to Engineering Design. Today we're going to work on making a part that uses a linear pattern. And that part's shown on your screen up here where my cursor is flashing. It's a pretty basic part. It's essentially a rectangle that's about 4 by 6, and it's got a bunch of these little nubs on top of it. And the way we're going to make it is we're going to use what's called a linear pattern. Let's get started. So first you should have downloaded the instructions for this, and you'll find those in the LMS under module 1.3.2. And what we're going to work on today is we're going to work on making this pattern in SOLIDWORKS, and we're just going to use a few simple sketch tools, a center rectangle, a circle, and then a few feature tools that you haven't necessarily seen yet. Specifically, the rectangular pattern is the new one. We've already done extrusions and fillets. So let's go ahead and start this thing out by making a rectangle. And I'm going to use a center rectangle. And I'm going to use a lot of center rectangles from now on because it gives my part symmetry. So we'll start with a center rectangle, and it's going to be 4 by 6. We're going to go ahead and dimension that out so that it is ½ an inch thick when we extrude it. So we'll start with an extruded boss base. I'll just go on the top, choose my center rectangle, drop the midpoint at the origin, extend it out, 4 by 6. And I'll exit my sketch, go right into my extrusion, and I want to extrude at 0.5 inches. Looks good, accept it. I've got my basic part now. Now what I need to do is what's called the seed, which is the seed for the pattern, what we're going to pattern over and over and over. And we're going to start in the lower left corner with this seed. We're going to start by making a seed, which is the part that we're going to pattern over and over. And that seed is a little peg, and that peg is about 0.30 in diameter, 0.25 inches tall, and it's located ½ an inch from each edge, the lower left corner of my part. So let's make that. I'll go ahead and do extruded boss, select my surface, grab a circle tool, sketch this out, apply a dimension between the left edge and the circle center, and I want to make that 0.5. A second dimension between the bottom edge and the circle center, and I'll make that 0.5. Last, I want to dimension the circle at 0.3. It's fully defined, you'll note. And from here on out, my expectation is all of your sketches are fully defined, unless I tell you otherwise. Exit that sketch, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude that to 0.25 inches. Roll my part on the side, you'll see it'll pop up just like that. That looks awesome. So the next thing I want to do here is I would like to apply a bit of a fillet to the top of that. So the fillet we're going to apply is 50 thousandths radius, 0.050. Choose my fillet tool. Make it 0.050 symmetric, and I'm just going to click on the top of my peg. That'll round over the top. That looks awesome. So now I've got the item that I'm going to do my pattern. When we make a linear pattern, what we do is we use it as a linear pattern of a feature. That is, we come up here on our Features tab, and we'll click this drop down. And you'll see in this drop down I can choose a linear pattern, circular pattern, mirror, and a few different options here. We're going to do linear pattern for this exercise. Select that. That will open up a dialog box over here on the left-hand side. And the first thing it's going to ask me is what grid I want to use. So I can use a lot of different things to define my grid. In this example, I'm going to use the edges of the part itself. And I've got two directions, direction 1 and direction 2. So direction 1 is selected by default. I'll click along this bottom edge. That's my horizontal. And you'll notice I get a preview of patterns. I can toggle the direction I'm going with this small little switch over here. I'll leave it toggled at that. Now I do need to set a spacing and an instance. So I'm going to set my spacing at 1 inch, and I'm going to leave it as 6. And now you'll see it'll start to appear out. Now you're going to notice what I've got selected to mirror is only the fillet. So I can come over here to my drop down, my feature manager design tree, and I can select both the boss extrude and the fillet. And now I see a preview of 6. Now that preview only appears if I've got this full preview selected. So I always use the full preview. So that's how many I'm going to get across in X. Similarly, I'm going to choose direction Y here which is direction 2, and I'll click on this left-hand edge. I could use the left or the right, it doesn't really matter. Again, I'll set my spacing up at 1-inch interval. This time I'm going to do a pattern of 4. And you'll see that preview. Well, that looks pretty awesome. So those are my 4 by 6 pattern, or a total of 24. Now notice that also includes the seed entity that I made here. I can change my spacing in these little drop downs if I'd like to. I typically don't do that. I just set it over here in the windows. So now if I've got a pattern I want to skip, and in this example I do want to skip some of these, I want to skip the center 4. So the way that I can do that is I can scroll down here and click the drop down for instances to skip. When I highlight this box, you'll see that I get these little pink dots. And I want to select multiples of these. I just go in and click. I can also do a drag box and a bunch of different things to select these, but I just like to click on them. Click individually. And I turn these 4 instances off and they go out of the preview. Now you'll notice over here in the left-hand corner that these are the X, Y Cartesian coordinates. So the first one is going to be, that's going to be skipped is 1, 2, 3 over, 1, 2, 3 up. And then it's 4 over, 3 up, 3 over, 2 up, and then 4 over, 2 up. So that's what these numbers here mean, where my cursor's flashing. That all looks awesome. Now I can deselect entities over here just as well as I selected them. So I've got my fillet and my boss extrude too chosen as my entities that I'm going to replicate in that linear pattern. Hit the check mark. There's my part. Pretty much done. Only thing I'd like you to start doing now to evaluate your own work is click on the Evaluate tab. I'll give you a property for it, the volume property, and it should be about 12.34 cubic inches if you've made this right. If you're not on that number, something's wrong. Other thing I'd like you to do is to be sure you check all of your sketches and be sure that you are fully defined. Submit this part as 1.3.2 linear patterns. Thanks for watching.